Hey everybody, I am borrowing a friend's yard for this video because mine is quite small and mostly dirt. So I thought borrowing some grass would be good to show you my two tents here. But what I thought I would do is set up the two tents that I currently own and just give you a little tour, give you some specs, and tell you what I like about them and what I don't like as much about them. So these are the two tents side by side. This is my current setup. So it is actually in a waterproof Sea to Summit stuff sack. And this is the Fly Creek UL2, which is in its own stuff sack, original stuff sack that it came in. And this actually is in its own stuff sack too, but I just stuck it inside this waterproof bag because I usually fasten it to the outside of my pack and I don't want my tent getting wet. So this waterproof stuff sack works really well. I love these Sea to Summits. They're the SIL nylon stuff sacks, the NANO version. This is a 13 liter and it fits that tent perfectly. So you can see this is the stake bag. There are just enough stakes in here to stake it out fully and have it be completely functional and keep you dry. That's the original stuff sack for the stakes. And then here are the poles. I've taken the poles out of their individual stuff sack to save a little bit of weight, and it's not needed anyway because you can just roll them up in the tent. The only reason I have kept the stuff sack for the stakes is because stakes can be easily lost unless they're in some kind of a bag. I think these are the original. Yeah, those are the original stakes that came with the tent, and they're not bad. They're pretty lightweight, so it's not a bad setup at all. So this is why they call it a double wall tent. You have this wall, which is not waterproof, and then you have this wall, which is waterproof. Double wall tent. So that is the Fly Creek UL2 setup. You've got the rainfly, you've got the tent body, you've got the stakes, and you've got the poles. And then over here, we've got the Tiger Wall UL2 setup. Got the tent poles right here. It's all one connected pole. These are my titanium shepherd hook stakes. So once again, you have a double wall tent. You have this wall, which is mostly mesh on top for ventilation, and you have this wall, which is your waterproof fabric. This is what you call a semi-freestanding tent. So there's a pole in each of the two corners at the front end. However, there's only one pole in the center at the foot end, and you have to stake out the two corners here. So this is a semi-freestanding tent, not a fully freestanding tent. All right, so I'm just gonna walk you around this tent. This is the Fly Creek HV UL2 without the rainfly on. And so I'll start with the front here. You've got a pole in each of the front two corners and a stake. This clip is where the rainfly clips in. Come across here, other front corner, you have a pole, you have a stake, and clip for the rainfly to clip in. And come around to the side here, and you've got a tie out to give you more width, more space inside. Just pulls the sides out a little bit. And then come down to the foot. Same setup as the other side. It's two guy line attachment points pulled out to a single stake. You have a center pole with a clip for the rainfly. You also have a loop for a stake. I hardly ever use this point, stakeout point, so if you were in a storm or it was really windy, then I would recommend using this because you want all the stakes in that you can get when it's inclement weather. Come over here, and again on the side you have a tie out so that you can pull out the side and have more space inside. And you do have tie out loops up here as well. If you wanted to tie these out, you could have even a little more headroom. I'll show you how these clip on. This clip is a little bit different than the others, and it slides into this plastic connector point instead of just clipping to the pole directly. That's the only different clip. The rest of them look like this, and it just literally clips onto the pole. Pretty easy. It's very quick to set up. You've got 3 clips across the top, and then if you go to the front, you've got 2 clips, 1 on each side towards the top, and then 2 more clips, 1 on each side about midway up the pole. So this is what it looks like on the inside. It is a little bit narrow. Not sure I would be comfortable in here with another person or 2 dogs, which is why I got the Tiger Wall. But this is the tent I used for quite a while with 1 dog. And I'll just lay down here so you can get an idea of where my feet are. I'll put my head is pretty close to where the door is, and that's where my feet are. Again, I never did this, but it would be beneficial to use those tie out loops and tie this out so you have more headroom here, because I'm sitting up right here on one side of the tent and my head is basically smushed into the netting. So you could take that loop that's up here and tie that out, and it would pull the netting off of your head if you had 2 people in here. Otherwise, if it's just 1 person and gear and maybe a dog, I could sit right smack in the center of the tent and my head doesn't touch the mesh. I'm 5'4", so I don't know, anybody taller than that would probably be into the mesh, but works okay for me. From the back of the tent looking forward, you definitely don't have headroom if you were gonna sit the other direction. This foot end of the tent is absolutely made for your feet. You can't really turn around and switch it up. There's just not room. This really is the foot end of the tent. I'll show you the tech specs, the measurements of this. I'll pop them up on the screen. I don't know what they are right offhand, but just to show you, and sorry, the sun is like right there, so it's kind of hard to see where the tent mesh is because of that. But I'll put the Fly on here in a second and get in, and that'll probably help. All right, so you've got a little pocket up here. This is what I was telling you guys about in the last video. This is the MTNGLO version of the tent, and there's wiring in the seams. You just plug this into any USB power bank that you've got and it lights up the whole thing. So you've got a loop up here, you've got a loop right there, you have a loop right there, toggle for the door, hold the door back, and I already showed you that one. There's a loop up there, there's a loop at the foot end right there, and I think that's it. Yep, that's it. There are also 2 large pockets on either side of the door. So it's a UL2, it's a 2-person tent. I would say it's a 1-person tent, honestly. Even with the sides pulled out, it's just not, it doesn't give you too much headroom. So it's great for 1 person, great for 1 person and a dog. Turn around the way I'm supposed to be. Not a bad tent though. That is the Fly Creek HV UL2. If you can imagine, HV is supposed to give you more headroom. I don't know what the non-HV one was like. Your head would have been in the mesh no matter how you tied it out, I think. But yeah, anyway, let me put the Fly on it and show it to you. So it's pretty easy to tell on the Fly Creek because there's only one door. But as I recall, the clips are color coordinated. So, for example, that one is orange. So the clip on the Fly is orange to match it. And it literally just clips right in there. And you can snug it if you want, but I've just left it the way it is and it's been fine. Hard to do with one hand. So you see the two front corners then are gray and they match the gray clips. On the foot end of the Fly at each corner, it's again just a guy line. You can tie this to a separate point if you want to make sure that it stays off of your tent. And then on the sides, you have the guy line. You can tie this to a separate point. I usually just tie it to the same stake that my tent is tied to. And as you can see, it does keep it away from the tent pretty well. So there's a little clip on the side of the Fly. You can clip it to this. There's another one up there that clips to that little yellow tag, if you can see it. And then here we've got corner of the foot. This is hard to do one-handed. Put that on the same stake. Tied to the same stake. Tied to the same stake. Actually, it came untied. And that one needs to be tightened too. And again, you've got the little inside clip that you can clip to the tent body. And you'll see that the Fly has the same tie-out points that the tent body has right here. So I'm going to show you underneath this Fly. There's a little piece of Velcro, and that little piece of Velcro goes around the pole of the tent to keep the Fly and the pole centered. And you have to do that before you clip these front corners. This is what your vestibule looks like in the Fly Creek HV UL2. This is not bad. And you can close the inside door here. So a couple of things that I didn't do that you can do is attach. There's a little clip on the Fly and a loop on the outside of the body of the tent. You can attach that and it pulls this out a little bit. And then there's a guy line attachment on the other side of that, on the outside of the Fly, that you would pull out and stake out or tie to a tree or whatever, to keep this pulled out away from you and give you a little bit more headroom. I don't have much experience with other tent brands. I am the type of person who, if I get a tent and it works well for me, I'm gonna probably stay with it. And Big Agnes has really treated me well. They're pretty tough for as thin material as they are. You know, the way they make these tents ultra light is the material has gotten so thin. I mean, it's almost unbelievable how thin this material is and how tough it is. Aside from the paw going through the door, which was not Monty's fault, I do have this little whole tenacious tape. They come in these little, you can get them in these little bitty containers that are super lightweight, little small blocks of tape, and you can cut it to fit whatever size your hole is. But it works really well. What I did was I put a piece on the bottom and a piece on the top, and works pretty well. I've had it there for a while. Yeah, so okay, I've spent enough time on this tent. Let me go put up the Tiger Wall. similar setup to the Fly Creek, except there's no funky clip at the foot. They're all just these very basic, simple clips that clip onto the pole like that. This centerpiece is a little different. I'll show you that in a minute. One-handed. One-handed and one-footed. There we go. Alright, so let me show you this centerpiece, how this works. So the pole is rounded, there's a ball at the tip, and it clips into this plastic thing right there, and it locks it in there. And then it's the same idea as the Fly Creek on the foot. You have to stake it out. So this is also a semi-freestanding tent, not a fully freestanding tent. And these stakes did not come with it. Big Agnes ships their tents with the stakes that I was showing you on the Fly Creek. These I bought separately because I just prefer them. These are titanium shepherd hooks. And your goal is to get as much foot space as you can get. I'm just looking to make sure that that's pretty taut, not too taut, but enough to give me some room inside. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll just pull it out. It's taut that way and taut that way, ideally. So you can already probably see that this is a lot more space than the Fly Creek. This is the Tiger Wall UL2. And this is my backpacking tent of choice at the moment. So before I put the Fly on, I'm going to take you inside. Kind of harder to open the door, but not too bad. So this is the inside of the Tiger Wall UL2. Nice and open. You can see I've got plenty of headspace no matter which side I'm on. You know, it's not like an arch like the Fly Creek is. It's more square at the top. So there's a lot more space. Let me turn around. So you can see I'm all the way up against one side here, and I'm touching the side a little bit, but only because I'm really close to the side. Like, head space is fine. So I really like this. And then you can see the space that I've got over here. And usually what I do is I have my two dogs on one side with my backpack at the foot. Here you've got the opening in the pocket so you can put headphones through if that's your thing. But there's a good sized pocket up there, and then you've got two pockets down here, one on each side. You've got these little loops again, same as the Fly Creek, so you can hang clothesline if you need to. There's actually 3 in the center here, and then you've got 2 on the head end, one right there, one right there, and nope, there aren't any on the foot. That's it right there. So 2 large doors. So we have a door on this side too. I have a couple of holes right there. I can't remember how that happened either, but it wasn't the dogs, it was me. It's less memorable when I do it. And I just put some of that tenacious tape, one on each side of it, and that should hold it up for a while. So, but yeah, look at these big open doors. I love it. So looks like I am running low on battery, so I'm going to stick the Fly on here so you can see it real quick. So again, on this tent, the color of the clip mechanism here matches the color of the clip on the Fly. So you've got these Velcro loops that go around the pole towards the head part right there. Got one right here. I don't ever fasten these, guys. You've got gold into gold. Gold into gold. So you remember I showed you the center cross pole at the top. The Fly has a pocket. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a pocket that the end of that pole goes into, and it has a tab on it that you can actually pull to get it to go. Pull it out and then the pole slips into it. Same on this side, the end of that pole goes into this little pocket on the Fly. There we go. So this has some Velcro as well. One at the bottom and one in the middle. Right, so totally set up now except for the sides, the ends pulled out and staked out. This one doesn't necessarily need to be pulled out. It would help, but it's not absolutely necessary, and in fact I don't think I ever do it. I also don't put a stake in the centerpiece there because the foot's staked out. But this end definitely has to be staked out because otherwise it just lays up against the head end here. There's no pole there for it to lay up against. So yeah, let me close this up and I'll show you what the vestibules look like closed up. You've got your toggle, tie-back toggle right here. When you want to open your door, you have another toggle on this side if you want both doors open. Zippers from both ends, so if you want to vent at the top, same vestibule space on the other side. So this is kind of what I was talking about in the last video, just about how the balance point is kind of off-centered, so the weight is off. When it rains and this Fly gets soaking wet, it gets heavy and it pulls this down, and the toggle can't always hold it. And you can see, like, there's not much left at the bottom here on the bottom end of the toggle. It's all at the top above it. And so yeah, it just, when it's really wet and it's heavy, then this usually it'll all come kind of hanging, sagging out of the toggle. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll just flip it over the top, over the back side of the Fly, and if it's all wet it'll stick. But yeah, I love this tent. I mean, I've used it for the last 2 seasons, I think. But let me just lay down here. Oh, that's nice. Ouch. Oh, kink in my back. Definitely, ow, kink in the back. Ow, ow. But hopefully you can see how much more headspace there is in this Tiger Wall UL2 compared to the Fly Creek HV UL2. Even if I sit off to one side, it's just, there's so much more headspace. I love how open it is. I love the color of it. The yellow makes it feel a little brighter. But you can see, I mean, I've got some sap on the bottom. That's on the bottom underneath of the material, not on the top here where I'm touching it. But I don't use a footprint. You know, if you wanted to prevent this from happening, you can get a footprint for that reason. But I've never used one, and I use my tents for years and years and years. This right now is my favorite tent. I love it. Works really well for me and 2 dogs. So this is the Tiger Wall UL2 from the outside. And you can see I could take these off probably and save a little bit of weight because I never use these. I've never had a problem. So you can kind of see how far away the fly is from the body of the tent. Maybe. So you don't want your fly touching the body of your tent when it rains, because then that water will come in through the body of the tent onto you. So there has to be space between the fly and the body of the tent to keep you dry for this to work. And then over here we have the Big Agnes Fly Creek HV UL2. This one is 1 pound 15 ounces minimum trail weight. This one is 2 pounds 3 ounces minimum trail weight. Hello from the studio, everyone. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up video to the video I did yesterday about the tents. It's actually snowing and 20 degrees outside now, so I'm glad I set up the tents yesterday when it was 65 degrees. So we're just going to do this follow-up video inside the studio today where it's nice and warm. I wanted to point out that even though the material on these tents is really thin and very ultra light, it is very strong. So I don't feel like you should be concerned about how durable it is. The Fly Creek tent I've had for probably 7 or 8 years now, and it's been well used. And like I said, the only holes that I have in it are in the mesh, which any tent that has mesh, that's going to be a weak spot. But only in situations where you're talking about a dog's paw going through it. That's where the hole in mine came from. So I feel like it's going to withstand all of the normal backpacking events that might occur on the trail. The material is really strong, and I did want to just tell you what that material is. So the tent body is made of a ripstop nylon and then the polyester mesh at the top. The floor of that has been coated with a silicone to make it waterproof. The rain fly is also a ripstop nylon coated with silicone to make it waterproof. And both tents are made out of that same material. They're both super thin, super lightweight, and super durable. So don't let the thinness scare you off. The packed size for the Tiger Wall, which is the larger of the 2 tents, is 5.5 inches wide by 18 inches long. And the Fly Creek just varies slightly. It's 4 inches wide by 18.5 inches long. And then I wanted to just point out that looking at the spec sheet on both of these tents, there aren't very many differences according to the numbers on the spec sheet. However, when I'm sitting inside these tents, I can feel a difference. The Tiger Wall has so much more space. So according to the specs, both tents have a floor space of 28 square feet. The Tiger Wall feels bigger to me. Also, the specs say that the Tiger Wall is only 1 inch, the peak height is only 1 inch taller than the Fly Creek. Again, when I'm sitting in there, there's so much more headroom in the Tiger Wall than the Fly Creek. So I'm a little baffled by the spec sheet. I just feel like the Tiger Wall is significantly bigger, and at some point I might actually take my tape measure out there and measure it myself, because it feels so much bigger. And then the last thing that I wanted to let you guys know about is the fact that you can set up both tents in what they call a fast fly setup. And that means that if you purchase the Big Agnes footprint, it comes with the clips that you clip the fly into. Therefore, you could set up the pole set into the footprint and then clip the fly over the pole set into the footprint and just use that sort of like a shelter instead of a tent. It's not an enclosed structure. So the Fly Creek fast fly setup is 1 pound 7 ounce, as opposed to the minimum trail weight of 1 pound 15 ounces. The Tiger Wall fast fly setup is 1 pound 11 ounces compared to a minimum trail weight of 2 pounds 3 ounces. So the last thing I wanted to go over is just how I prep my tents for the trail. What I would do is I would take everything out of the stuff sack that it comes in. Every component in the tent has its own little stuff sack when you first buy it. And you don't need to bring all of that with you on the trail. So I would take the poles out of its individual stuff sack and just roll the poles in the tent fabric to pack it. The stakes I would leave in some kind of bag, either the original stuff sack or if you find a lighter weight bag that you want to put them in, that's great. But I would leave them in some kind of a bag just to prevent them from poking into your tent fabric when it's packed, and also so that you don't lose any stakes, because it's really easy to do that. And then I would set the tent up and determine how many stakes I need in order to stay dry, to keep the tent up in wind, high wind. And if there are any stakes left over, I would take them out and just store them at home. And then I would go around the tent and I would check all of the guy lines and determine which guy lines I absolutely need to use in order to stay dry and keep the tent up in high wind and etc. And if there are any that I don't need, I would untie them, because Big Agnes anyway comes with the guy lines pre-tied on the loops. And if you don't need to use those, I actually haven't done this yet with the Tiger Wall, but if you don't need to use them, I would untie them and take them off. Again, save them, don't throw them away, save them as extras. You can also use that cordage for other things like clothesline or ridge line in your tent if you use that type of thing. So anyway, once I've done all of that, then I'm left with all of the basic components that I need to use on the trail. And I would either put all of that in a new stuff sack, a lighter weight one like the Sea to Summits that I mentioned, or the original stuff sack, put it all back in there, and then it would be ready for the trail. So I hope this video helps. It was a little difficult for me to make. I'm still getting used to handling the camera while I'm talking and trying to get the camera on the particular part of the tent that I'm talking about, and there's definitely a skill to this, so I'm working on that, but I'll get some more practice, because I do plan to do a video for each of at least the major pieces of gear that I take into the backcountry. So hopefully future videos will get better. And again, if you guys have any questions, pop them in the comments and I'll answer them directly, and maybe potentially do a future video about some of the questions that you have. So thanks a lot for watching. Hope this helps.